I'm Alex Hinton with TCDI. Today I have with me Bogdan Salamaha, Senior Cybersecurity Engineer with TCDI. He conducts research in cybersecurity through reverse engineering of malware. He's going to talk to us today about the Microsoft Exchange hack and what you can do to protect your business. I was wondering, Bogdan, what type of damage do you think will happen as a result of this attack?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and thanks again for having me. What the type of effect this is going to have is really for a lot of those organizations that really haven't made the push to move to something like Office 365 or another cloud email solution. So they still have an on-premises Exchange deployment, which there's, well over 60,000 organizations around the world that are still using on-prem Exchange just for ease of management, things like that. They want to have more control over that data, and really the effect here at this point is kind of similar with what we saw with SolarWinds. It's kind of still unknown because of the effect this has. Really the malicious attackers are able to exploit Exchange using a server-side request forgery exploit, which was a 0-day, meaning that no one really knew about it until it became too late. And that essentially allows them full range access into that server, which then, even according to Microsoft's own security advisories, that it provides them access to essentially do whatever they want on that machine and even move laterally to other machines on your network.
I understand that a lot of businesses are going to be patching with the security fixes issued by Microsoft immediately if they haven't done so already. And then they're going to be checking for indicators of compromise to see if their servers are still vulnerable. The threat seems to be if the servers have been backdoored. So the attackers will be able to gain access, remote access to compromised servers and to the internal network, even after the servers are patched. So what can attackers do after they've gotten inside with this backdoor?
Yeah, so a little bit more of the technical overview of how essentially how this works is that once the malicious actors are able to exploit these 0-day vulnerabilities, they're able to get machine level access on the Exchange server within that domain. And to boil it down in simple terms, it just means that they have full control. And at that point, they can take it further and perform attacks like mimikatz, where they're dumping passwords of memory and then use that to authenticate with anything else on the network. And obviously this opens things up to things like ransomware, data exfiltration, theft of intellectual property or other information from the organization, or just sitting on that until a good time arises for when maybe it's payday. At this point, it's kind of hard to know, but here in the past couple of days, that's really been a lot of the focus with a lot of the clients we've been working with. Is it's very easy to apply the patches that Microsoft has applied and use the tools that they have developed to test and make sure you're no longer vulnerable. With a lot of those mitigations. However, it's another thing when it comes to making sure that there's no persistent threat, there was no data exfiltration, and if possible, determine if there was lateral movement to other machines on the network or even other machines to vendor networks or sister companies or things like that.
How should businesses mitigate the risk of this Microsoft Exchange vulnerability?
Yeah, so with this is a very good question because it's a 0-day, there was no really a real way for us to be prepared outside of looking for anomalies as to how a normal Exchange server operates. Moving forward, I think when it comes to mitigating risk, I think organizations really need to look into partnering with a trusted cybersecurity provider that can come in and do a configuration audit, some pen testing, just give everything a once over, just make sure things look okay from the forensic side. And that includes looking for things like backdoors, persistent communications, lateral movement, and even just just moving forward, what else can that organization do to really tighten things up, like implementing security information and event management solutions to pull as much logs, pull as much data as you can, so then that way, if there is an anomaly like this, it's much more easier to identify exactly when it happened, and if not even respond to it in the moment, because it's such a big anomaly as to how Exchange is normally supposed to operate.
And what kind of recommendations do you have for businesses moving forward from this?
Yeah, I mean, I can go through a laundry list of everything that we've seen here in the past week in terms of recommendations. I think generally, you definitely want to follow what Microsoft is putting out, all their information within their security advisory. You're running their Microsoft Security Scanner tools, essentially using any of the resources you have available to you publicly. Outside of that, you want to make sure that, if you're finding these indicators of compromise on your Exchange server, these shells, you want to make sure that you're changing passwords, you're locking down password or user accounts, removing unused user accounts. We've even had an organization consider rebuilding their entire Exchange server from scratch on a newer version, as maybe that was already something within their timeline, and this just put the catalyst to that. Yeah, so there's obviously a lot of things you can do. Really depends on the type of organization, the type of data you work with, and the industry you're in. Whereas, an organization that works with healthcare information is going to approach this very differently than an organization that doesn't deal with any personal health information or personally identifiable information.
Yeah, that's a good point. And each industry is going to have a different reaction to this, depending on what kind of data they're keeping. Well, do you have anything else that you want to share with us today? Any more recommendations or thoughts that you've had while dealing with this past few days?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the biggest things I've seen really is just the variance of this vulnerability. What Microsoft has released in terms of the indicators of compromise that they've identified through all of their partners and their own personal investigation. We've seen something just last night that hasn't been reported yet, and it was a very particular type of shell that the malicious attackers were using that allows them to essentially interface with the underlying Exchange server through a ASPX web page directly through the browser. Essentially, it creates like a command line interface, downloads whatever is needed, and allows the attacker in. We haven't seen that yet, so it's definitely out of the ordinary. We're looking forward to sharing some of that information to hopefully help the intelligence community.
Awesome. Well, I don't have any more questions for you at the moment, but thank you so much for meeting with me and answering a few of the top questions that I had so far. And I look forward to hearing more about this. Seems like a lot is going on between SolarWinds and Microsoft. So really keeping us all on our toes, huh? So thanks again, and talk to you soon, Bogdan.
All right. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.